In the beginning, the earth was silent. 4.5 billion years ago, our planet was nothing more than molten rock and restless storms. Yet over eons, something miraculous began to stir in the depths of the ocean. In the dark cradle of Earth's earliest seas, chemistry danced with chance, and life, fragile, microscopic, and almost unnoticeable, began its slow rise. The waves of time washed over the planet for billions of years until, at last, a chapter unlike any before would begin. The Cambrian Explosion. It was a time when life itself seemed to awaken with sudden, almost defiant creativity. For billions of years before this event, the ocean was home to little more than simple cells and tiny colonies. But in the Cambrian period, 541 million years ago, life would bloom in a dazzling array of shapes, sizes, and strategies. This was the moment when the blueprint for almost every major animal group we know today was drawn. Creatures with eyes, legs, shells, and armor appeared in a geological instant. It was as if evolution, after a long and quiet rehearsal, had stepped into the spotlight. Beneath the shimmering blue surface of the Cambrian seas, an alien world stretched from horizon to horizon. The ocean floor was a tapestry of soft sands, rippling with the currents, dotted with strange sponge-like forms. The water was alive with drifting clouds of plankton, tiny organisms that formed the base of this burgeoning food chain. Sunlight streamed through the shallows, painting golden rays on the seabed, but in deeper waters, only cold, shadowed mystery prevailed. Here, Trilobites crawled in great numbers, their segmented bodies armored in exoskeletons that glinted like polished stone. They were among the most successful creatures of their time, scuttling across the sand in search of food, their antennae sweeping the ground like delicate sensors. Above them, strange jelly-like organisms drifted, pulsing slowly in the currents, while soft-bodied worms wriggled through the sediment, leaving winding trails in their wake. This was a world of firsts. The first predators, the first prey, the first complex eyes scanning the waters for movement. The Cambrian Explosion was not just an age of diversity, it was an age of conflict and innovation. Those who could not adapt quickly became meals for those who could. Evolution, once slow and unhurried, now raced forward with relentless speed. One of the most fearsome hunters of this time was Anomalocaris, a predator unlike anything before or since. With its large compound eyes, it could spot prey from a distance. Its mouth was a circular arrangement of hard plates, ready to crush the shells of trilobites. Its two great spined arms shot forward with deadly speed, snatching victims and drawing them in. In a sea of strange creatures, Anomalocaris was the undisputed apex predator, gliding with graceful menace through the water. But even the mightiest hunter was part of a greater story, one in which survival depended on adaptation. For every predator, new defenses arose. Trilobites evolved thicker armor. Worms developed burrows deep in the sand where claws could not reach. Some creatures grew spines or spikes. Others mastered speed and agility. It was an evolutionary arms race unlike anything Earth had ever seen. The ocean itself played its part. Tectonic shifts shaped new coastlines and shallow seas. Volcanic eruptions enriched the waters with minerals. Oxygen levels in the oceans rose, allowing larger, more complex animals to thrive. It was as if the earth, the oceans, and life itself were conspiring to create this sudden explosion of forms in the shallows. Delicate creatures called hallucigenia crept along, their thin bodies bristling with sharp spines for protection. They were so bizarre in form that even scientists today took decades to correctly understand which end was the head and which the tail. Floating just above the sandy bottom were Wiwaxia, small, slug-like animals armored with scales and long spines, feeding on algae and detritus. Coral-like structures began to appear, forming miniature reefs that offered shelter to countless small organisms. Filter feeders like sponges and brachiopods anchored themselves to the seabed, drawing nourishment from the drifting plankton. So, over time, more mobile grazers evolved, nibbling on algae and scraping surfaces clean. These grazers, in turn, became prey for agile hunters. Each day in the Cambrian seas was a balance of light and shadow, of life and death. The sunlit shallows thrived with colorful abundance, while the deeper, darker waters were the realm of slow-moving giants and lurking predators. The tides carried life between these worlds, mixing the delicate web of the ecosystem. Yet even in this golden age of early animal life, extinction was never far away. Entire species would vanish, replaced by others better suited to the ever-changing seas. Constant changes lay the secret to the success of life itself. Adaptability. The Cambrian Explosion was not a single moment, but a series of innovations stretching over millions of years. It set the stage for all the complex life forms to come: fish, amphibians, reptiles, mammals, and eventually us. The strange shapes that swam in these ancient oceans may be long gone, but their genetic legacy swims within every living creature today. And so when we peer into the fossilized remains of a trilobite or trace the spiny outline of a hallucigenia, we are looking at the earliest chapters of our own story. We are the descendants of the survivors of that time, an age when life's creativity erupted in a dazzling display beneath the waves. The Cambrian seas have fallen silent now, their strange inhabitants long extinct. But in the stillness of stone, in the memory of DNA, their voices remain. They tell us of a time when life first learned to dream, to fight, to see, and to grow. And in their story, we find the origins of our own. In the beginning, there was silence. Not the kind of silence we know today, but a vast, unbroken stillness that stretched across a world still finding its shape. Mountains were being born in slow-motion battles beneath the crust. Oceans swelled and churned with raw, untamed energy. The skies were a canvas of strange colors: hazy purples, deep reds, and streak of gold, painted by volcanic ash and gases from an earth that's still in its youth. Yet even in this alien stillness, life was stirring. Before the towering dinosaurs ever walked the land, before the mighty predators of the Mesozoic ruled the food chain, there existed kingdoms. Kingdoms without kings, worlds without names, civilizations of creatures so strange, so otherworldly, that if we saw them today, we might think we were looking at life from another planet. The first waves of life beneath the waves, in oceans that seemed endless, life had already begun its slow, deliberate climb. Tiny cells joined forces, evolving into more complex beings. Corals and sponges formed living cities, cathedrals of stone-like skeletons that housed the first ecosystems. Strange, worm-like creatures burrowed into the soft sea floor, leaving winding trails that would one day fossilize into ancient whispers in the rock. The sunlight that filtered into these shallow seas was not the same gentle light we know today. It was fierce, almost alien, tinted by an atmosphere still thick with gases, but it was enough. Enough to power the first great leap in life's history: photosynthesis. The Cambrian Explosion, Earth's first renaissance around 541 million years ago, something remarkable happened: the Cambrian Explosion. In the geological blink of an eye, life erupted into complexity. Creatures with eyes, legs, shells, and armor appeared seemingly overnight in the fossil record. The seas became crowded with trilobites, armored arthropods that scuttled along the seafloor like alien tanks. There were spiny predators like Anomalocaris, with its segmented body and grasping limbs, and there were the bizarre hallucigenia, creatures with spikes on their backs and too many legs for comfort. It was as though evolution had suddenly discovered creativity and ran wild with it. These creatures lived in worlds lit by sunlight from above, but beyond the reach of light, in the dark, cold depths, other life thrived. Giant worms and blind scavengers fed on whatever drifted down from the sunlit surface. It was a world of hunters and the hunted, of rapid evolution and extinction. On the move above the waves, the continents were restless. The surface of the earth was not fixed. It was alive, constantly shifting, colliding, and breaking apart. Massive land masses slammed into each other, creating mountain ranges taller than the Himalayas. Volcanoes spewed rivers of molten rock, reshaping landscapes in fiery bursts. The air was thick with carbon dioxide, trapping heat and keeping the planet warmer than today. Every shift of the continents, every rise and fall of the seas shaped the path of life's evolution. The Silurian seas, conquerors of the shore around 443 million years ago, a new chapter began, the Silurian period. Life in the oceans was booming. Coral reefs expanded, teeming with fish, mollusks, and crustaceans. But for some creatures, the ocean was no longer enough. Small plant-like organisms began to take root along the shores. Simple mosses and early vascular plants turned barren rock into green footholds, and where plants grew, new opportunities followed. Arthropods, scorpion-like eurypterids, and early millipedes ventured onto land. They were pioneers, explorers of a new frontier, breathing air for the first time. It was a slow, dangerous migration, but it marked the beginning of life's conquest of dry land. The Devonian, the age of fish. If the Silurian was a time of cautious steps onto land, the Devonian was a time of bold leaps. Known as the age of fish, this period saw the rise of armored placoderms, massive jawed fish with bony plates for protection. They ruled the oceans like armored knights, preying on smaller, softer creatures. The seas also hosted early sharks, sleek, agile predators whose descendants still swim today. And in the shallows, something extraordinary was happening. Lobed-finned fish with sturdy, muscular fins began using them to push through the mud, exploring tidal pools and swampy banks. These fish were the ancestors of all four-limbed creatures: amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals. Without them, we would not exist. The Carboniferous forests of giants. Around 359 million years ago, Earth was transformed into a humid greenhouse. Forests of towering club mosses, horsetails, and ferns blanketed the land. The air was rich in oxygen, so rich, in fact, that insects grew to incredible sizes. Dragonflies with wingspans of over 2 feet patrolled the skies. Millipedes as long as a car crawled through the undergrowth. And in the swampy waters, amphibians thrived, from tiny frog-like creatures to massive crocodile-sized predators. The Carboniferous was a world of abundance, but also danger. Predators grew larger, prey became faster, and evolution continued its endless arms race. The Permian, the first great kingdom, ends by 299 million years ago. All the continents had merged into one massive supercontinent, Pangaea. The climate shifted from humid swamps to vast deserts, with extreme heat in the summers and bitter cold in the winters. Reptiles began to dominate, with scaly bodies better suited for the dry, harsh conditions. Among them were the ancestors of mammals, small, warm-blooded synapsids that hunted insects in the shadows. But the Permian would end in tragedy. A series of massive volcanic eruptions in what is now Siberia unleashed poisonous gases and greenhouse emissions on a catastrophic scale. Oceans became acidic, the air grew toxic, and temperatures soared. In the Permian Triassic extinction, over 90% of all life vanished. It was the greatest mass extinction in Earth's history, a near total reset. Epilogue. For the dinosaurs. When the dust settled, the Earth was quiet once more, but not for long. In the ruins of the old world, survivors began to rebuild. From these humble beginnings would come the age of dinosaurs, and much later, the rise of humans. Yet the kingdoms that existed before the dinosaurs, the trilobites, the giant dragonflies, the armored fish, remain as silent ghosts in the fossil record. They were the first rulers of our planet. Their stories, written in stone, remind us that life is both fragile and unstoppable. Even the mightiest reigns end, but life always finds a way. The ocean floor does not fall silent. Instead, it begins to hum again with the quiet resilience of the smallest forms of life. Tiny plankton, shimmering like dust caught in a golden beam, drift in the gentle currents. They are so small that 1,000 of them could rest on the tip of a finger, yet they carry within them the promise of entire futures. For in their bodies, the energy of the sun is captured and stored, fuel for the next chapter in Earth's unfolding story. The shallow seas become nurseries. Small, soft-bodied creatures rise and fall with the tides, feeding unseen on the invisible rain of nutrients that drifts down from above. Crabs, their shells still thin and delicate, scuttle between the rocks seeking shelter from the cold, silver light that seeps through the surface. Coral-like colonies begin to form in miniature, each a living city of tiny architects, working tirelessly without rest. Above them, the surface tells a different story. The waves no longer break with the thrashing of titanic bodies, no longer churn red with the battles of giants. Now they move in quiet swells, their crests catching the faint glimmer of starlight in the long prehistoric night. The air is cleaner, the water's calmer, yet within this calm lies the tension of waiting for the next great arrival. And arrive it will. Over countless seasons, currents carry nutrients to new places, encouraging life to spread, to adapt, to transform. Microscopic creatures become prey to larger, more agile hunters. Fish with slender darting bodies, their scales flashing like fragments of the moon. These fish travel in great schools, their synchronized movements like waves made of living silver. To watch them move is to witness a single mind guiding thousands of bodies, all flowing together as one. The predators return, though smaller than the rulers who came before. Swift-bodied hunters with sharp teeth weave through the silver clouds of fish, their eyes bright with hunger. They are not kings yet, but they are learning. They will grow faster, stronger, and more cunning with every generation. On the seafloor, slow giants still roam. Not the armored titans of old, but soft-bodied grazers with long, sweeping tentacles gliding over the sediment to sift out the life it hides. Their movements are gentle, but their presence shapes the ecosystem, clearing space, cycling nutrients, giving other species room to thrive. And in the hidden cracks of rocky outcrops, life experiments. Creatures with strange shapes and stranger habits emerge, some translucent like glass, others with spiny limbs that seem too delicate to endure. Yet endure they do, for this is the rule of the ocean: adapt or vanish. This is not just survival, it is transformation. In the sky above, the sun rises and falls, marking the endless passage of time. Each dawn bathes the water in gold. Each dusk turns it into a field of molten copper. And as these cycles pass, the descendants of the survivors grow more complex, their bodies fine-tuned by the slow, unyielding hand of evolution. The ocean that once belonged to giants now belongs to the patient. And patience, in the history of life, is as mighty as power itself.